Hey guys, Andy Tran here with the Innerbark Outdoors channel, and this video is a wrap-up of Blade Show West 2019. There was 20 videos that I've published with the great help of the wife. She is now learning how to do some editing. So if you guys are there and saw her editing in the corner of the show, thanks for leaving her alone and letting her do her work. But not possible without her doing that. So I completed a playlist of all the videos that we did, and I just want to go over the companies and why I decided to stop and do a video with them. So first on the list, and this is in no particular order, is Tops Knives. Tops Knives is a company that's near and dear to me. They are the producers of two of my designs, the first one being the TFK and the second one being the Ice Dagger. And they had quite a few new knives coming out, and if you follow their Instagram page or their Facebook page, you'll see those kind of trickle out. And so Craig over at Tops Knives talks a little bit about the new design, which is by one of the first female designers for Tops Knives, or I guess the first female designer for Tops Knives, and along with a few others, including some karambits and things like that. So those are really good. Check that out. It's about a 10-minute video, but there's a lot of information, a lot of cool knives packed into that. The second video is Valavian Edgecraft, and what drew me to this company, or this maker, is that he was trapped in the wilderness, or not trapped, but I guess lost in the wilderness for, I think he said, over a week. And during that time, he had a few cheap knives, and by the end of his survival scenario, a lot of those destroyed themselves and got destroyed. So what he decided to do was vow to make some badass knives that would survive the wilderness, just in case, I guess, it ever happened again. Third video would be an interview with Ethan Becker. Now, Ethan Becker is a cool guy that I met probably about 3 years ago by now, and I met him through a very good friend, Dan Eastland from Dogwood Custom Knives. And in this interview, I wanted to talk a lot about the Kephart Revival project. And in this project, Ethan found a source of an original Kephart knife outside of a museum in original condition. And so it's really cool listening to him talk about the process and what he had to do to get that knife, and then a little bit about the grinds and how all the geometry works and everything. And then he also mentions a couple knife makers, including Dogwood, that have used the original knife to get some measurements and to make the most accurate reproduction as possible. Another company that we went to go visit is Ooak Forge. Ooak Forge is a company that I got familiar with last year, and they had a lot of cool little slingshots and things like that. And so this year, the primary focus for the video was their new butterfly knives, or the Bali Song. And so it's their first knife, and they collaborated with another knife company in order to make this. He is a butterfly flipper, I guess what they call him. And so he made it to his specifications and what he really wanted. So you have this really cool look, and then you also have the expertise behind the flipping to make this a badass knife. So that's why I decided to stop by them. Next on the list is Ooak Forge. This is a company that I was introduced to by Nolan from Cascadia Cutlery. And I'll talk about Cascadia Cutler here in a bit, but Ooak Forge was pretty interesting because he had this giant Celtic Bronze Age sword made with Damascus steel. And what was really neat is, after talking to him, I realized that he did all the Damascus himself, did the entire billet himself, and then forged this and made the whole sword in the course of 3 months working full-time. And I also learned that he's not selling the sword, even though one would be about $10,000 according to him. He's actually giving it to his dad. So I don't know what he did to have to do that to his dad, if he crashed his Corvette or what, but pretty cool gift nonetheless. Next would be Pierce Knives. Pierce Knives is a company out of Walla Walla, Washington, or as I like to call it, Walla Squared. And what caught my eye is his naturally flowing lines, and after talking to him about his knives and how much he geeked over, different steels and tempers and all that stuff, I felt like I needed to do a video because he does everything in-house aside from some of the handle materials. But he even has a Rockwell hardness tester, and he does all of his Damascus steel, and he does everything from these big like chopping blades all the way to kitchen knives and anything in between. So overall, I think he's a really cool maker, and since he's so close, maybe I'll visit with him later on down the road this year. The next company after that would be Raptor Razor. So Raptor Razor is a company that caught the eye of my wife actually while we were walking around, primarily because it is a tool / knife system designed for hunters and big fishers, or big fish fishers. So it's a cool system of like a hook, an ulu style blade, and then also a blade that's kind of like an offset handle. It's kind of hard to explain. The point is you should probably watch it if you like hunting and fishing. It's supposed to take your skinning and gutting game down to like half the time is what I think he said. And there's a whole bunch of videos at their booth of people processing game, and also there's a crap ton of videos on their YouTube account as well. And so I decided to do a video on them because primarily for me, so that I can go back later after the show and then go ahead and buy myself a set. With hunting season just kind of wrapping up, but then roadkill season being pretty much year round, it's a good thing to have. So last year we went and got acquainted with Ooak Knives, and this year I went over to them and learned that they had a whole bunch of different prototype models. So unfortunately there's not a whole lot of MSRPs, even blade steels or names for these knives, but you can kind of see them before they get released in late 2019 and early 2020. The really cool thing about it is it's a Chinese company making Chinese knives. It's not like an American company making knives in China and then the quality goes away. The quality for the Ooak knives are actually pretty darn fantastic, and because they're made overseas in their own factories, the price point is a lot better than, say, a comparable price range for an American knife or an American-made knife. Next on the list is Cascadia Cutlery. Cascadia Cutlery, I met with Nolan at the chef's knife competition, and he said, hey, come by the booth tomorrow and check it out. And so went over there, learned that he does knife sharpening for a living, and I think he said he sharpens anywhere between 50 to 150 knives per day, that's a lot of steel to remove. But he represents a whole bunch of different custom knife makers, and what's really cool is that he'll promote them because I guess a lot of custom knife makers have a hard time promoting themselves, and so he's kind of like the fight coordinator and fight promoter. And so I thought that was kind of cool because you can go to one place and find a whole bunch of different makers, and they're all really good quality. And I think according to him, he makes sure that they back their stuff, because a lot of custom knife makers, they don't have any sort of warranty. You kind of get what you get. So Hogue Knives is no stranger, especially to people that are in the firearms industry. You'll know that a lot of big gun makers also use Hogue as their grip manufacturer. So the first Hogue product that I have ever had was a grip for my Sig Sauer P229, and I got a G10 grip for that, and it improved the grip tremendously. And so they also make knives for both HK and for Sig Sauer. And overall, I think the knives are fantastic. The cool thing about this company is that they can work with OEM coders and work with the actual gun companies to get all the trademarked logos and everything like that. So what brought me to Hogue Knives was the Legion series of pocket knives. So if you guys are big fans of the Sig Sauer pistols and the Legion line, then this is definitely a knife that you should take a look at. The cool thing is they have the exact same logo that they have in the Hogue grips for the Legion, but they also take the same coatings that Sig Sauer sends their guns to, and they put that into the knife as well. So you have matching grip materials, the matching logo, and also the exact same coating. Hi, buddy. So next on the list would be Benchmade. Now, I know there's a whole bunch of political stuff going on with Benchmade, but I try to not stay all that political on my channel. I just like to hang out and I enjoy good cutlery. So I think everyone can agree that they have good knives. But the main thing that brought me to them was their new OTF automatic knife. Now the thing about automatics is, you know, some people can't have it depending on your state, but overall they're really cool, and I like them for work because I don't need two hands to operate it, and I don't need to fumble with a big knife and try to get into a sheath when I don't have the light or the capability of doing so. So their new knife is made out of G10 with aircraft aluminum liner, and so it stays super strong, but also shaving off, I think, an ounce from the Infidel series. And so that's a knife that I'm definitely wanting to check out here in the future. So Atlas Knife and Tool is the next video, and what brought me to them is their forges. So going around, what caught my eye is the fact that they have a stainless steel forge. And the stainless steel forge is really neat because it's stainless steel, so it's not going to rust. It's also a really compact size, and the Atlas model sips on propane. I think it's about $1 an hour or something like that to operate this thing. And so I thought that was really neat because I was like, hey, I'm in the market for a forge. And boom, he also had an anvil too. And the anvil is made specifically for knife makers, which means there's no horn and there's no shoe, because knife makers don't really use all that stuff all too often. And so what he did was he took a 65-pound anvil, and instead of having mass brought out to the horn and shoe, everything is underneath the strike face. So you have a lot more mass directly under the working area. So according to him, it feels more like a 120-pound anvil. And so I'll be testing that out myself, because at the end of the show, I went back to Atlas Knife and Tool and decided to buy myself a forge and also an anvil, because I was in the market and why not? It seemed pretty good. Next video on the list is LT Wright. They didn't have too much to say. It was a pretty short video, but they do have this cool little Puko knife that will be coming out, and I think what he said was there's going to be about 10 different handle color variations. So Prince Customs is kind of new to the knife world. He debuted last year because he just felt like designing a custom knife, and I believe that was a Daruma. Overall, he is like the master of all. If you look at his Instagram account, he does everything from custom knife work to, you know, making one-off parts for Rolls-Royce cars and all that stuff. So he does pretty much everything. But he's really interesting because he does everything from the actual knife making portion of it all the way to designing the graphics himself, and then also designing all the packaging and making the packaging with his laser cutters and his milling machines and 3D printers. So I thought that was really cool. He's got a couple variations of Balisong this year, and those are showcased in the video. So Fiberlight is a company that kind of caught my eye because they had this, this banner that said they'll give you a free fire lighting kit if you can make a fire out of flint and steel. And being kind of a pyro myself, I was like, oh, sure, I'll do it. And so they quizzed me for a little bit, and they were like, so what do you need for a flint and steel fire? Well, you need tinder, and you need flint, you need steel, and char cloth. And so I guess I was the second person in their history of them doing this kind of challenge to actually answer that char cloth question. And so I thought they were originally talking about, you know, the fire steel in a striker, because that's what most people call flint and steel. And so they surprised me wonderfully with an actual like old school piece of hardened carbon steel and then a piece of chert. And they gave me a little piece of char cloth, thankfully, because I don't just carry that with me. And I was able to make a fire out of it, and they gave me a free fire lighting kit. So that's something I'm actually testing out right now, and potentially will be carrying in the store. Overall, I'm liking it a lot. It's waterproof. It holds really well. There's nothing that evaporates, and it burns really, really well. So Dogwood Custom Knives is next, and it's actually the first video that I filmed. We went over his kitchen knives, and by the way, his kitchen knives are fantastic. I actually have a set that I gave to my mom, both the 7-inch chef's knife and then a paring knife. And the handle that we got for that is the Starry Night pattern, which is really cool because it also has glow-in-the-dark chips and stuff like that in it for the stars. But we did a video on that, and then we also talked about the Kephart reproduction that he did. And so, as I mentioned earlier with the Ethan Becker video, he was part of getting all the measurements and really bringing this knife back to life. And so with his ability to draft and reproduce things with writing instruments or measuring instruments was really vital to this overall project. So it's been about 2 years in the process, but now he has the Kephart Revival available, and I believe he has a few of them at his online store that are up for grabs. Next is SOG Knives. SOG Knives is not a stranger to this channel. I used to do a lot of their online videos back in the day when I did video full time. And now they are coming out with some new stuff. So they won the Blade Show Production Knife Fixed Blade Award. So that's a pretty big award because there's a lot of production fixed knives out there. But what I liked about it is, A, the feel in the hand is really good. They updated the steel that they normally use, and then they also have an ambidextrous sheath for it, so you can carry it left side, right side, whatever you want, and it's still going to fit, and it has a really good snap and retention. And CRKT would be up next, and what I liked about theirs is that they have the Provoke in the new Earth color tone, and so they have a, I think it's a Cerakote, but overall it brings this kind of dull gray finish into something that blends in a little bit more, especially for guys that carry it on their web gear. So Worksharp is another company that kind of blew me out of the water for this show. They brought out several different knife sharpeners, and most of them would be the standard like pull through, but they have this pivot technology which makes it so that it actually bites in better for the blade. So that pivot feature is switch on and offable. So it's really nice for people that want to get a really coarse sharpening, and then you turn off the feature and then it goes a little bit lighter, and then you flip it over and then you have the ceramic. The cool thing about it is the carbide blades are actually a little bit curved, so you get a nice convex edge, which is a little bit more tough on the, or tougher and harder to break. So that's a good thing. What was really kind of neat is after going through that demonstration, and then he kind of told me what the price points were for each of the tools, or each of the sharpening tools. I was kind of blown away because I was expecting it to be like way more money. The most expensive item was the Ken Onion vertical sharpener, and that came at 50 bucks. So you can expect the street price to be a little bit lower than that. Last but not least is Worktuff Gear. So Worktuff Gear is a company that is primarily active on the other side of the pond. And so I guess they're pretty popular in Australia, over in Taiwan, and some of the Southeast Asian countries. What drew me to them is my good friend John from the Wingman 115 channel. He has a brand new model of knife that just came out with them called the Mount Laguna Bushcraft knife. And that knife is super duper awesome. I finally got to see it like in person and feel it in the hand, and it feels great. John, if you're watching this, you did a great job, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and test the shit out of it for you. But it's a knife that he spent a lot of time on and put a lot of sweat equity and a lot of tweaking to get it to just where he wanted it to. And so it's a cross between like a hunting knife, but also a bushcraft knife, so you can use it for both wood and meat, and you're good to go. Worktuff also had a small wood stove, which I thought was really neat. It's one of those packable stoves that are really good for canvas wall tents and things like that. The really cool thing about it is it has a second burn system in it. So not only does it just burn directly with the wood, but then it also burns the gases that kind of come off the wood gases, and then it's more efficient that way. So overall, that's kind of all the videos. I think there's about 20 in all. Again, thank you for everyone that decided to take the time and speak with me at the show. And a big shout out to the wife for editing all the videos. Really couldn't have done it without any of them. I hope you took out a pen and pencil to kind of figure out what you guys want to watch. But there's 20 videos down below. Go ahead and check them out and let me know what you think. But as always, take care out there.